Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is KC Bohrer. KC is running for sheriff in Morgan County. He'll be on the May 10th ballot, on the Republican ballot, against Ronnie Stotler and Wade Shambaugh. KC, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Russell.
You were born here in Morgan County. What year?
1959.
And what's the work of your folks?
My father was a career military man. He spent 39 years in the Air Force and the Air National Guard, retired in 1989. And then he became a bailiff for the Morgan County Circuit Court, where he worked for the next 25 years, both as a volunteer and then finally a paid employee. My mom's a homemaker.
All right. So your dad he's known as AC.
He's known as AC.
And what does KC stand for?
Kim Carlton, yes.
Okay.
My dad was in the Korean War, and there was a young man that he liked over there by the name of Kim, so I was named Kim.
All right. And you graduated from Berkeley Springs High School?
I did, 1978.
All right. And give us your career trajectory. What have you been doing since?
Oh, well, I graduated in May, and the very same month I went to work as a police officer in the town of Paw Paw. I'd wanted to be a police officer since I can't remember. That was my life's desire and my passion. I worked there for just under a year, and I was recruited to go with Berkeley County Sheriff's Department. Part of the reason was at that time, training was not mandatory, and I wanted to go to the State Police Academy, and Morgan County would not send you. So I went to Berkeley County, graduated from the State Police Academy, worked for the next 27 and a half years in patrol and investigations, major crimes and drug investigations. Was fortunate enough in 1995 to be selected to go to the FBI National Academy. One of the greatest parts of my career, because less than 1% of all police officers are selected for that. So I graduated from Quantico in 95, continued, rose through the rank to the highest rank of captain. 2006, I had the opportunity to retire.
This was Berkeley County?
Yeah, Berkeley County.
Okay.
Yeah, and during that time, I was also detailed out and assigned to the United States Marshals Task Force, and I worked a lot of major crimes and major investigations. That was sort of my passion, my forte. I retired and went to work for Frederick County Sheriff's Department, Virginia, right across the line.
What year is that?
2006.
Okay, so is that Winchester?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I've been there ever since. I still work there today, and I'm assigned with the Major Crimes Investigation Unit. I focus on homicide, cold case homicide, financial crimes against senior citizens, and now I'm on the FBI Task Force for Human Trafficking and Sex Trafficking. So I'm working cases in that realm. I work up and down the Quad State area somewhat.
Okay. Have you ever run for public office before? This is your first time?
I have not, and if you'd have asked me this, I probably would have told you never, but yes.
What made you decide to?
You know, I have been blessed with a great career. I've been blessed with a lot of training and education. This is home. I live here. I care about the community. For many years now, crime and drugs has just increased and increased. And I feel like it's time for me to give back. And I want to give back because I have a vested interest in this community. I care about it. We live here on the family farm, my grandparents' farm. So I want to take what I have to be able to give back to Morgan County.
Okay. And, you know, we've interviewed your opponents, and they seem like decent law enforcement kind of guys. And people are going to get a chance to watch all of these interviews and make a judgment before they vote.
Sure.
So how do you think you differ? How would you differ as a sheriff from Wade Shambaugh or Ronnie Stotler?
Well, first of all, I applaud them for their careers in law enforcement. I'm very much an advocate of police officers. For years, I was the West Virginia State Secretary. So I really applaud them in their careers. Speaking to Mr. Stotler, I don't know him well. I've heard good things about him. He's a corrections officer. I think that is an admirable career. I would not want to be a corrections officer. I'm not trained as a corrections officer. I don't have a background in corrections. I don't see how a corrections officer, with my experience in education and law enforcement, how it's a good fit for sheriff. You're not a police officer. I don't think Morgan County has the time to be able to train someone on the job. The problems are there. The duties of the sheriff are vast, so you need to be able to go in on day one and be able to do what's necessary to be sheriff, make arrests, work investigations, supervise deputy sheriffs. So I think that's a big difference with me and that candidate, although I applaud him in his efforts to run. With Mr. Shambaugh, I don't know him very well either, a little bit better than Mr. Stotler, and I applaud him for his career. But I think what sets me apart is my experience, my training and education. I have more than double the amount of experience, training, and education than any other candidate.
Okay. Do you think, by the way, one issue that has been raised in this campaign is the whole question of sort of like a family dominance over the sheriff's department? Because I asked Wade Shambaugh, I said, well, what happens to Vince? He says, well, we're just switching. Vince becomes my deputy and I become the sheriff. Mm-hmm. Is that troubling to you at all, do you think? Is that a problem?
Well, West Virginia 3 times has had a referendum on sheriff's term limitations. And 3 times, in my knowledge, the voters of West Virginia have decided the term limitations were important and they defeated it. Is it troubling? A bit. I know some of that issue has been raised. I think we've seen in politics nationally, state and locally, where change is often better to bring in new ideas, new perspectives, new relationships into law enforcement. And I think while the Sheriff's Department's done a good job, I think I can steward the Sheriff's Department into doing a better job.
Now, I think we were talking to one of the candidates, first one, and they were saying that Morgan County, relatively speaking, is a low crime county. Would you agree with that? And how does it compare from, for example, the neighboring counties where you've worked, Berkeley County and Frederick County, Virginia?
I'm glad you asked that question. I have been involved in an organization called Quad State Intelligence Group for 30-some years. Started here, actually, by a former state trooper.
Now wait, the Quad State, Pennsylvania, Maryland,
Virginia and West Virginia.
Okay. So those are like a law enforcement from those 4 states?
Yes. We're an organization where we meet bi-monthly, but we're in contact daily with investigators and police departments, state, federal, and local from this entire region. I've been the chairman of that group for many years now, so I have a good handle on what's going on in the whole Quad State area. Morgan County, due to a lower population, a more rural community, has less crime than, say, Berkeley or Hagerstown or Winchester. But that's not always going to be the case. As we know with the drug problem, it's a transient problem. Heroin's not made in Morgan County. Those sort of things don't happen in Morgan County. So we see the crime crosses the jurisdictional lines all the time. Even though there's less population, there's going to be less problems and there's going to be less crime. But that's not to say it's not here, and that's not to say that we don't need to be prepared for it. There's been many communities across the United States, and I was watching a segment in New Hampshire the other day, a community not unlike Morgan County, that within basically the flick of a switch became a drug haven, became a crime haven, because they were asleep at the wheel. They weren't prepared for what was going to happen next. We need to be prepared for what's going to happen next. And we're a mere half hour from Winchester in Berkeley County. Berkeley County has the largest crime rate in the state of West Virginia by all statistics. We're a half hour from Hagerstown, Maryland. We're 45 minutes from Chambersburg. We're right in the center of all of these problems. I would say we have to be prepared and do the best we can for our future.
All right. Well, we're not going to put up a wall at the bridge or at the Berkeley County line. So how would you protect Morgan County from that kind of infiltration of criminal element coming in from other counties?
Well, I think what you do is, first of all, you have an awareness of what's going on, and you have an awareness of what's going on in your region. I think you do a lot of education with your citizens, which I've been involved in many years, doing education with senior citizens and children and things. Law enforcement, when I started in the career field, it was more of an us against them mentality. And now it takes all of us together to work together to protect our communities, not just law enforcement, but law enforcement and civics groups in the county and people like yourself to do educational awareness. We need to be proactive, not reactive. And for many years, we were reactive. So I think that's one of the big foundations and steps. Plus, be prepared. If we have a homicide here, do we have someone that has experience in working homicides? If we have a child abduction here, do we have someone here who has experience in that criteria that can lead, that can supervise, that can make that situation better or that investigation better? Or do we not be prepared for that? Do we not have those resources available? And as we know in certain crimes, we only have one opportunity. We only have one period of time that we can really go out and do the right crime scene investigation, do the right investigation, do the right child abduction investigation. You only get one bite at the apple when it comes to our career field.
You have a flyer that you're handing out, signs of heroin abuse.
I do.
We hear a lot about heroin and the drug epidemic.
Yes.
Spreading across the United States, but primarily poor areas, rural areas in Appalachia.
Yes.
Also, do we have a heroin problem in Morgan County, and how extensive is it?
Yes, we do. We have a heroin problem. I think with heroin, we don't know the extent of the problem all the time because it's not something that is there for everyone to see. It's not something that the mainstream society see. It's cloak and dagger. People use heroin or they seclude themselves when they do that. If you look at the latest statistics in the United States, there's a belief now that 1% of the population may be using heroin and opioids. If you look at that in Morgan County with a population of 17,428 people last census, that would say that we probably have 175 users of heroin in this community. The drug problem, crime problem, is a lesson in economics, supply and demand. If you have the demand, then you're going to have the supply because it is a profit-oriented business. So if we have 175 users or even more, how many dealers do we have? And then when you look at the heroin, many of the people that I work with today, we say, and it's kind of a ballpark estimate, that 95% of all we do has a heroin nexus to it. The items that are stolen from the store, that are pawned or shoplifted or sold on eBay or Craigslist, go to support the heroin problem or the drug addiction problem. The guns, the cars, the houses that are burglarized fuel the money to support the need of the user. I had a case last week that went to court, and it's not unlike any other court case where the individual, the victim of the heroin abuse, is a good person who, for whatever reason, began the path of drugs that they can't get off. And heroin's a problem that we're not going to arrest ourselves out of. It's a community problem. But this person wakes up every day to figure out how to get money to support the habit and make it to Baltimore and back. We'd be foolish to think that we don't have those problems here, once again, considering we are in this close proximity to Baltimore and Washington and Hagerstown and Winchester and Martinsburg. It's here.
So if I understood you correctly, you said we can't arrest ourselves out of this problem.
We cannot.
So as sheriff of Morgan County, understanding that this is a societal problem, it's not a Morgan County problem specific. I mean, it is Morgan County
It's a national problem.
It's a national problem. Mm-hmm. It's also a question of poverty. It afflicts poor people.
And we have a better than 70% poverty rate in Morgan County, I'm told.
Right. So as sheriff, I mean, when people think of sheriff, they think law enforcement.
Sure.
So as sheriff, other than arresting people who are violating the law, what will you be able to do? What will you be able to bring to the table to help us address this broader problem?
Well, as I've learned in my law enforcement career, again, it goes back to the proactive and reactive standpoint. Many years ago, we were reactive. We were the people that responded to calls. We responded to incidents after they happened. But I've learned over the years, the more that we get involved in the community, the more that we get involved with youth, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the addiction organizations, the churches, the community people, the more that we get involved with people and we discuss the problems and we ask for information and we provide information, we can start changing our society. We can start bettering our society because, again, arresting the users is not going to change it. It's a priority for us to make the arrests in criminal cases, but we need to go after those people that are selling this, these people that are profiting from this. And we need to educate the people to not get on the drugs.
And are those dealers here in Morgan County? Do we have dealers here?
Certainly do.
And what would be your guess as the number of that?
I don't have a good number on that.
Okay.
I haven't been working right here in Morgan County with the dealers. I do know from my relationships with state and federal task force that there's need here and there's need of work to be done in that regard.
Other than the drug problem, what will be the work of the Sheriff's Department? Primarily, what's going to be the work as you see it of the Sheriff's Department?
Well, a sheriff in West Virginia is kind of a unique entity in the fact that the sheriff has so many responsibilities. The sheriff is responsible to the courts, the security of the courts, the security of the courthouse. He's responsible to the tax collection, and as you well know, we're in financial times now, so a sheriff has to be a good steward of tax collection, make sure that that office runs efficiently and that every dollar is allocated very stringently to the resources. The sheriff has to be a leader. He has to be the person that trains and supervises his personnel. He has to be the one who administers policies and makes sure that policies and law is being strictly adhered to. There's another issue. If you look at national law enforcement relations, look at all of the unrest, look at all of the lawsuits and things that's happened across the country. So a sheriff has to be responsible to the taxpayers to make sure that the department is doing what it should do, what it's doing lawfully, because we don't want to be the focus of a lawsuit. We don't want to lose money. We don't want to have these sort of situations happen in Morgan County. And with my background, I feel that I can minimize that, if not eliminate it.
What do you, and I know in your materials you talk about some kind of citizen advisory board or something like that. What are your proposals there? And what about abusive deputies or deputies that abuse their power and abuse their discretion? What will you do to curtail that kind of problem?
Well, I'll take the citizen advisory board first. In my past, I have initiated and worked with citizen advisory boards. I'm a big communicator, just who I am, how I was raised, but I'm also been involved in interviews and interrogation, mental health, crisis negotiation, so it's a passion of mine. But as a sheriff with having an advisory board, and in this past year that I've been campaigning, people have come and told me their problems. They've told me what they want to see happen. I want this advisory board that we meet at least bi-monthly and have the folk from Paw Paw and Great Cape and Pleasant View and South Morgan come and see me and tell me, what do you need? Years ago, I worked with a law enforcement supervisor and a gentleman that everybody loved, and he always made the comment, the public will let you know what laws they want enforced and how they want you to minister to them. Well, if you don't have that communication and dialogue, you don't know what the problems are. You don't know, it's assumed. And many times people don't have that ability to communicate unless you invite them into it. Conversely, when you have this group, and as I've had in the past, you have the ability to convey to them what your needs are, what you're looking for. You have the ability to tell them if there's burglaries in their communities, if you have a budgetary problem that you need help with. So you become basically an organization where it's not just the sheriff and the citizens, it's the sheriff and the citizens together. And I've seen the benefits of that, and I know, and that's going to be one of my focuses. As far as abuse and power, it sickens me. I think all of those sort of things can be dealt with. I've been an internal investigator. I've investigated, arrested, and fired law enforcement officers, and it sickens me because I consider myself a professional. And when that sort of thing happens, it's not only an infringement upon the law, but it's an infringement upon my ethics and my beliefs. But you can avoid that through training. You can avoid that through accountability and transparency with those folks. And if you're a good leader, you'll have good subordinates. If you're a strong leader, you'll have strong subordinates. I'm a good leader, and I will ensure that those things do not happen, but if they do happen, then the public will have an open door when they can come in and see KC Bohrer and there'll be a mechanism to file that, but you have to respect their rights too. Okay, there is West Virginia Civil Service, and there's an investigative police procedures, and it has to be a good balance, because sometimes people do file complaints because they've been arrested and they're on the side of the law, but investigation, education, and training will minimize that.
Okay. Morgan County Sheriff isn't the only law enforcement in Morgan County.
It
There's
is
the
not.
state police, there's the town of Paw Paw Police, there's the town of Bath Police. I believe
Yes.
those are the major ones. How, like, if there's a problem in Morgan County, who responds? How do you decide who responds? And what's going to, if you're elected sheriff, how are you going to relate with those other law enforcement officials?
Well, right now, I relate very well with those law enforcement officials. Most of them I've known for years, I've worked with, and I've trained several of them, and we've worked cases together.
You mean when you were in Berkeley County
And now.
And now,
And now.
because of coordinated activities between neighboring counties?
Coordinated activities.
Okay.
My fiance will tell you that my phone's never off. I get called a lot of times from all over the region, because I've just always been this person, go-to person. So when they need something, or they need something in Virginia, or maybe some sort of resource or expertise that I might have, a lot of folk call me. Maybe part of that's because I've been around almost 38 years, but a lot of the law enforcement folk call me for help and for resources and references. So those things are already built. Relationships in law enforcement are like relationships at home. They're fostered, they're nurtured, they're built over years, and I have the years. The county has very small manpower. The state police and the sheriff's department primarily respond to the calls in the county, in the greater part of the county. That goes through 911, or if it's a direct dial, then it goes to that agency. Mm-hmm. So there's a mechanism, there's a place as to who responds and how they respond. Something that I want to look into and work closer with the state police, so that we allocate our manpower, our scheduling, our resources to be able to provide the most people that we possibly can to staff the county in the most hours that we possibly can.
Okay. And we only have a couple minutes left.
I'm sorry, it goes so quick, doesn't it?
I know, it was great. But I wanted to ask you just a little political question.
I'm not a politician,
I
so I
get
may
it.
fail at this.
I get it. But the state legislature this year passed a revised concealed carry bill.
Yes.
I don't know if you've been following it, but
I have.
And the state police almost uniformly were opposed to this, where they allowed for concealed carry over
Permitless
21
carry.
without a permit, and between 18 and 21 with a permit for the first time. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
It's called constitutional carry. I think there's 7 or 8 states in the United States that have it. I'm a law and order guy. I'm a Second Amendment guy. I believe in the people's rights. I do have concerns about training and education, but as law enforcement, it has to be what the will of the people is, what they have decided, and I have to enforce those laws. One thing that I've talked with some of the people with West Virginia CDL and other organizations is, since this has passed, I would like to see law enforcement take a more proactive role in offering training to try to train the folks, the safety. You know, much like a sheriff, you just don't strap on a gun and pin on a badge and become a sheriff. You know, we're required to have training. And I think we can be a shepherd of maybe taking the existing law we have and do education and training to make it safe for everyone.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to end it. This is going to be a May 10th primary.
Yes.
Unfortunately, only Republicans or independents who choose the Republican primary ballot will be able to vote in this primary.
Or the non-party folk.
Or the non-party people. So if you want to vote in the sheriff's election, ask for the Republican ballot. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to vote in the sheriff's election. Good luck to you.
Any local elections.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're, for example, we're doing the Board of Education also, and that's going to be on every ballot.
Yes.
But good luck to you, May 10th.
Thank you. I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming on.
It's my pleasure to be here.
And thank you for watching This Week in Morgan County.